Well, thanks very much for having me. I've been excited. I've done this now for 4 years. This is my 4th year as commissioner in Onondaga County, and I've met with a lot of you on your projects, and I really have enjoyed those as well. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Election Day is going to be this year. Has anybody done this? Is anybody here that would have done it last year as well, or
probably
a couple?
Full of people, but certainly not anywhere near the.
All right, so you're gonna, if you did it last year and not in a presidential year, you're gonna see a lot more people at the polls. Onondaga County, the last 2 presidential elections have had 77 and 75% turnout. In a non-presidential election, we would probably have somewhere between 30 and 40% turnout. So double the people at the polls on Election Day in a presidential year, which means double the work for the inspectors. We have amplified some staff at some polling places, but you know, we have limits for what we can do, budgetary and legal limits for what we can do at a polling place, and because we always have to have a bipartisan staff, you know, we can't just if there's a lot of Democrats in one area, put you know, a whole bunch more Democratic inspectors or vice versa for Republican areas as well. The first thing I got to get off my chest a little bit is, while I have loved doing all your school projects all year long, after tomorrow I can't do anymore. I have to be there for the voters on Monday and Tuesday, because at the Board of Elections, many of you came down there, that's where all the court orders are going to be happening on Election Day, and we expect anywhere from 400 to 500 court orders on Election Day, and I'll be manning the counters almost all day long unless there's a problem at a polling place, and then we will then I'll have to go out to that or something like that. So I won't be available even to the regular press. I'm just really not available. And also, inspectors at polling places, we tell them that they can talk to the press, but it's their choice. For one, they have no obligation to, and it's only when they're not busy. And in a presidential election year, they're never not going to be busy. So don't frame your stories around the inspectors this year. You may not be able to get a chance to talk to them. They probably won't have an opportunity to talk to you. And we're even telling them that they may not have an opportunity to have lunch. They can't leave their polling places. They've all voted already by special ballots because they can't go to their home polling places. Because in a presidential year, it's nonstop traffic. The voters come first, and we don't want any long lines. So that is where the emphasis is. So going to a polling place, if you're a media personnel, I know they're going to issue these badges right here. You need that at all times when going to a polling place. There are only 3 types of people allowed in a polling place besides credentialed media, and that is the voters that are voting, the election workers, and people with official poll watching certificates. So if you've heard certain candidates telling their supporters to just show up at another community and watch that polling place, that can't happen without an assigned poll watcher certificate from a party or a candidate. So our poll workers, because of this increased fervor, I would say, in this election, have been instructed on both sides that to strictly enforce this rule that we've been enforcing for a while, that people have to have these poll watching certificates to be able to be inside of a polling place if they're not a voter or an election worker. Credentialed media are allowed inside polling places to take B-roll or photography. We ask several things. A, you cannot take a picture or video that shows somebody filling out their ballot. That is their ballot, it's anonymous. We keep the anonymity of that ballot sacred at the Board of Elections. So do not take it, you know, and also if you want to talk to a voter or talk to an election worker, it has to be outside the 100-foot mark. There's a distance marker when you get to a polling place that'll say this is your 100-foot mark. This is another reason why an inspector probably won't be able to talk to you, because they'll have to leave the polling place. They can't do it inside the polling place. In New York State, you cannot do any what we call electioneering inside the polling place. So inside that 100-foot mark, you can't tell people who to vote for. You can't show people your ballot to try to get them to vote one way or another. You can't wear things. You can't wear buttons. You can't wear T-shirts. You as journalists shouldn't be wearing that anyways, but if you do, you will be asked to remove that if you're inside the polling place. So, you know, bumper stickers are, you know, on cars, I get that question all the time, but that's usually outside the 100-foot mark unless somebody had a really bad day. And then we got other problems. So, you know, make sure that you, or if your friends are going with you, maybe if, I don't know, most of you I've seen are working your cameras yourself, but if you have a cameraman friend or somebody that's going with you, make sure that they're not wearing that stuff as well. Again, if you want to talk to voters, be respectful to the voters. Do not interrupt the line. If there's a line, don't ask somebody to pull out a line. And do it outside the 100-foot mark and ask them if they would like to be interviewed. I think you'll be surprised a lot of them will be fine with being interviewed. The people that won't, it's going to be a busy day. There will be other fish in the sea. You'll be able to get other people to interview. And when you're talking to a voter, you know, we just ask you to be respectful of their time. Many people are taking time off of work to vote, or timing, you know, they have to get home to the babysitter. Let them answer your questions, and but get them in and out of your interviews, and be respectful of their time as well, because you know, with the presidential election there may be lines, and I'll go over that too. By the way, the busy times at polling places are, believe it or not, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., one of the busiest times, and 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., moderately busy time, and then 5 p.m. to like 8 o'clock in presidential elections. So that's probably the heaviest traffic. Our polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Results will be on our website, www.ongov.net/elections. This has been my pet project. We have a brand new results system that we're displaying this year. It's already on our website. You can kind of get a preview of it. It's really nice, and you can give us all kinds of compliments about it online. But it's kind, you know, it's kind of like you saw those big blue and red maps for the Electoral College. We have a mini version of that for Onondaga County for each race. So you'll be able to see election districts as they come in, how they vote for the president, but for every race as well. I'm not sure I got much else here. Again, down at the Board of Election, we'll have judges down there doing court orders. That's 1000 Erie Boulevard West. Will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. as well, but election workers will start there at 4:30 in the morning and work until about midnight, including me. It's a very long day for us. So if you catch an election worker around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they're a little grumpy. That's why. It's been a very, very long day. Our polling sites are online. There's a list right on our website at ongov.net/elections. You can download those. I know everybody's going to want to go to the campus site because it's right there. But if all of you go to the campus site, you're all going to get the same images for one. You're not going to have a nice report, you know, a different report than your other people, and it's going to be busy down there. And especially in a presidential year, the campus site is one of our busiest sites. So if you have cars and you have availability to go to different polling places. I don't know if
they're assigned different places.
They're assigned different places. That's wonderful. I like that. So if that's great, because in years past, we have seen, like, you know, more than our share of people show up over there, and regular media shows up over there too. And I wish I could assign them certain places, but you know, but city sites there are more sites inside the city than in the towns. That means that there's less voters at each site. The town sites are actually the ones where most activity is happening, because they are what's called super sites. Inside cities, we try to have walkable districts where people can walk to their polling place. In towns, in the suburbs, because it's more of a vehicle friendly area, and we have larger sites where people drive and park to. So if you're looking for a lot of traffic, take a look at some of our town sites. Believers Chapel out in North Syracuse is probably our busiest site. And the Solvay Geddes Youth Center in Solvay is one of our big sites, where we have 5 or 6 election districts in there, and the entire village of Solvay seems to go there to vote. So, you know, so if you're looking for a lot of traffic, the town sites are better than the city sites. The city sites have fewer people in it because we have more polling places. This.
I was going to say, just obviously the selfie issue, but also how will security be different?
Yeah, well, I was just about to get into that. I'll deal with the selfie issue real quick. Darn you, Justin Timberlake, you started this whole thing up again. Well, all right, the ballot selfie issue has actually been around since 2008. It's been debated several times. In 2012, the state board issued a ruling saying they didn't feel it was in violation of New York state law. And in their infinite wisdom, in 2016, they issued a ruling saying, well, it might be in violation of New York state law. And what it is, there's a New York state law on the books that says that you cannot show your completed ballot to another person. That law was passed in 1909, and the reason for the law was to keep people from showing their ballots to another person to accept a bribe for how they voted. And it was also to keep people from pressuring other people in the polling booth to vote a certain way by saying, hey, I voted for this guy. I'm your mayor, you're voting for this guy, right? And and this law was actually very effective. It really reduced the pay per vote thing because there was no proof of how people voted, and also it was part of that feeling that you didn't want to have electioneering inside of a poll site. In 2012, you know, when Facebook really started getting big, and Twitter, and people were posting selfies of their ballots online, it really started to take off about whether that is a violation of this law. There's a lawsuit going on currently in New York City. 3 voters have filed a lawsuit saying they want to be able to do this. And the judge has promised that by tomorrow, he will have a ruling on this. Hopefully that ruling will be definitive, at least definitive for this election, and won't have time to be appealed before then. So we'll at least have some guidance. So stick to the news tomorrow, or if you're a friend of our Facebook page, we'll probably post it on there too as soon as it comes out. I personally don't want to have to prosecute these stupid cases, so I really hope the judge gives us wiggle room there. But that is on the books. Security at polling places, as I said before, all of our inspectors go through training every year, and part of that training this year was to monitor for these self-motivated poll watchers that may try to cause a disturbance. They know they have lines to call in directly, and they can call 911 if they feel somebody is being if they feel somebody is threatening other people or threatening themselves. We have notified the sheriffs and the police about our concerns, and they are on alert as well and are ready to dispatch to any polling place that is there. And some polling places that are schools have private security that are there all day as well if the students are in session. So, you know, so a lot of churches have staff on hand ready to call and that kind of stuff. We're all very concerned about the passion that seems to be in the air. We saw this during the primary, and we're hopeful that it won't spill over. We're not a battleground state, but we do have a highly contested congressional race, and we could see some passion overblow. We already see it at on a daily basis at our place. We haven't had anybody violent, but they'll let you know who they're voting for when they're there, either side, and sometimes we've had a little bit of a back and forth with people at the counter, and we have to remind them that they don't do that here at the Board of Elections. They can do that outside. Go vote the way you want. So, but that passion is there, and I like that passion in some ways. It's better than not caring about the election at all. But I do anticipate high turnout. I know some media have said that, well, because these are the two most unliked candidates, maybe people will stay home. But I've been doing politics for 25 years, running campaigns. I can tell you fear motivates people just as much as pride. People will go to the polls to vote against somebody else just as much as voting for somebody else. That does not really change turnout all that much, in my opinion. I'd much rather go to the polls voting for someone than against somebody else, but it does motivate people. So. I guess I'll take any questions now, if you have any questions. Yeah?
I do 2 questions. When you said there will be 400 to 500 court orders, what are court orders?
Court orders are people who, if they go to a polling place and they're not registered at all, they won't be in the polling book on the thing. Now, if they call us and we find out they're registered somebody else or somewhere else, we can give them directions to do an affidavit ballot. But if they're not registered at all, their voter registration was either purged because they didn't vote for a while and moved, and they never responded to letters we sent, or they just never registered before. They can only vote by court order. That means they come down to our office, speak to a judge. Judge listens to their story about why they were not able to register before October 14th, and decides whether they can vote or not. The most valid reason for that is somebody moved from county to county after October 14th, because you have to register in each county. We have a very desegregated, very segregated voting system where each county has their own voter rolls by design. So if you move over county lines, the only way you can vote is by court order.
Are those conversations between petitioner and judge?
Yeah, it's private, and there are lawyers there. We have volunteer lawyers that, especially in a presidential year, are there to help represent anybody that comes in, and they can speak to the judge.
And the other question was, you said credentialed media only are allowed in polling places. What qualifies as credentialed?
Well, our stuff.
Your stuff works.
But if somebody doesn't have
If somebody doesn't have one of those, then it's up to the poll site manager to decide, or they're not with the major news organizations. And all the regular media have, passes and badges as well. If they don't have any of that, it's up to the poll site manager. It's their discretion about whether this person is causing a disruption or not. And more often than not, this year they're going to say no, because they don't know who they are.
like I've worked for 5 newspapers and never had to deal with that. I'm surprised.
Well, I think it's gotten worse over the last few years. And again, most elections, the inspectors are probably not as on guard as they are this year. Our inspectors during their training classes were very worried about this issue. And so that's why 3 years ago we made sure that they started getting credentials. In this group started getting credentials so nobody could stop you from going in. And that way we know that the people that have credentials know the rules of the polling place, or should know the rules of the polling place as well. There's no exception in New York State law for media. That's something that our local board has decided. We could conceivably decide no, but we wouldn't do that. But we could, and I've heard other boards do that. We do get in trouble with some of the national media because we do have that rule about the 100-foot There's some national media that have wanted to, have their exit posters inside of a polling station and interview posts, and we told them no, and they've gone elsewhere because of it. But that is a rule. That's a standard rule we have. On that 100-foot, we believe any conversations happening inside that 100-foot mark is electioneering. So,
Other questions?
yeah.
Do these conventions work like outside of like Syracuse lines? So I'll be in New York City, and I was hoping to do some coverage from there. And
It's going to be, as I said, it's up to the local board there. Most polling places, I believe, follow this. I mean, I'm part of the New York State Elections Commissioner Association. Most polling places tend to follow the things that we do too. New York City's always an interesting breed. They do their own things down there, and they don't always attend the conferences, so I'm not really sure what their thing is. I would call the county board that you're going to be in, Queens, Kings, whatever, and ask them and see if that's going to work.
do they have a right, if they don't accept the convention, do they have a right to kick you out of the polling?
Yes, I mean, there is no exception in New York State election law for media to be inside of a polling place.
So even if like you're not making a disturbance, you can't.
That's right. Yeah, somebody else had a question? I thought I saw a hand go up.
Could we make sure we're clear on what the 100-foot
Yes.
marker is? You're talking about no electioneering inside, but there is journalism allowed inside.
Journalism is allowed inside in the sense of B-roll and photography, but interviewing voters outside, it has to happen outside the 100-foot mark.
Okay, so you interview somebody who's in line, and
Yeah.
you say, may I walk in with you as you walk to the poll? You could go with them,
Yeah.
you could shoot them walking out, and then finish the interview outside.
Yes. And another thing is introduce yourself to the poll site manager when you get there. Tell them show them your badge, tell them that you had talked to me, and that you understand it's okay to take B-roll, and assure the poll site manager you're not going to talk to the voters. And that'll get you the poll site managers off your back. I mean, these are people that have been doing it a long time, and so they know the rules, but they've been doing it a long time, and it may be a long day for them as well. So make them at ease with your presence, and that'll help you in your projects more than anything else. Yeah.
What time would you recommend if we wanted to introduce ourselves that we go? Because I know they're really busy as well.
Well, they're going to be busy all day. So when you go in, just ask for the poll site manager. Tell them that you're here to shoot. I mean, it's a 30-second conversation. They'll probably be right at the door monitoring the traffic coming in. Any other questions? Oh, you're a quiet group. You're much more active when you come to my office. Yeah.
Markings for the 100-foot rule, is there going to be any kind of marking on the
Yeah, there's a white paper that says distance marker. Okay. Inside that distance marker is the 100-foot, and the poll site manager decides what that 100-foot is and where the polling station starts. So they may decide that the polling station starts at the door because the machines are right inside the door, or they may decide it starts down the hallway, and it's their discretion. They get to choose where that distance marker is. So look for the distance marker, and don't start marking it off by your feet and say, well, this is 102 foot, not 100 foot. They're not going to care what you say about that. Whatever they decide is the 100 foot, is the 100 foot. Even if that means outside in the rain.
More specificity on what Simon asked. If you photograph someone in the polling place, can you at least ask them their name?
We ask people not to interact with the voters and talk to the voters at all. We ask for that not to happen. Follow them outside and ask them the name after they get out. By the way, you may be able to see them when they check in at the polling table. They have to tell the inspector who they are and sign in the book. So you may be able to get that, ambiently as well. But I ask you not to speak to the voters at all, because it slows down the line. It can be seen as electioneering. We prefer only B-roll and photos inside, talking to people in the back, outside. Anything else?
and to Mike's and for all kinds of photography and videography, showing somebody voting is not the same as showing somebody's ballot.
That's right. If you're showing their back and there's no way for you to conceivably see who they're filling out that ballot for, and we do have those, you know, privacy screens. So it's really hard to actually see somebody. You'd have to be over their shoulder and putting your camera over their shoulder to see it, or God forbid, asking them to show their ballot, you know. So plus, even when they're walking to and from the privacy booths, they have a sleeve that they can put their ballot in as they're walking it to the station to put it in the station. So there's really no way to really see a ballot unless you're really trying hard.
One of the things that I can just add to that, there are some people that think the media is able to do things that they're really not,
Yeah.
and have cameras that can do things that they really can't do. So if someone is objecting to being shot or videoed or whatever, this is not the place to get into an argument with them about their paranoia or whatever. Just move on.
Yeah, yeah,
Lots of fish.
yeah. There'll be lots of fish this year.
Not be, you can't check those out on Tuesday.
That's right. Yeah.
The vote changing cameras until next election.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Can you paint a visual for people who've never been in a polling place? Because I know they're all different.
Yep.
But they do follow pretty much. You know, it's a town hall, it's a school.
Yeah.
So you go in, there's a table.
Yep. When a voter walks into a polling place, they check in at their table. Now, there's about 8 polling places that are that we have our electronic check-ins, where we have somebody at the beginning of the polling place. They have a computer and they check every voter and tell them which table to go to, because these are our polling places that we have 5 or 6 election districts in it. And that's our electronic gatekeeper system. But that's only in 8 polling places. They're mostly out in the towns. One of them will be at the SU facility, just to check voters to make sure that they're registered before they get in line at the other places, and tell them what table to go to. Then once they decide what table that they're at, they go to the table that is their election district. They get up to the front of the table, and there's a couple of inspectors there, one Republican, one Democrat. They tell them their name. They look in the book, and when they find their name, they sign next to their signature that was captured from last year. That is how most people are identified in New York State, that they are who they say they are. First-time voters who registered for the first time this year and that we were not able to verify with Department of Motor Vehicles or Social Security will be asked to show ID. Or if somebody voted by absentee, but then they show up in person, they make a note of that and they notify the board so we can pull that absentee ballot later on, and so their votes won't count twice. Then once they're all checked in, a ballot will be ripped out of the stub book and be given to them. There is no marking on the ballot itself that correlates to the stub book or correlates to the number of people that walk in. That's a big myth that's out there, that we can go back and kind of have this forensic analysis to find out how somebody votes. When somebody gets a ballot, there's no marking on that ballot of what number voter they are or what number the stub ballot is. The stubs are there for us to record after the election for how many ballots were out. They then take that ballot to a privacy booth or a tabletop or ADA booth if they're in a wheelchair. They fill out the ballot. There's pens there. They fill out the ballot. There's a privacy sleeve. They put the ballot in the privacy sleeve, walk it over to the scanner, which has a big blue privacy curtain around it as well. They put the ballot in the scanner, and the scanner will say ballot accepted, or it'll kick it back out saying you filled out too many things, or there's markings on here that we can't accept. You can get up to 3 ballots if you keep making mistakes. On your 3rd ballot, if the machine won't accept it, then we will put that ballot in the emergency ballot box and hand count that later on, because maybe you have too many eraser marks or you keep going outside the bubbles or something like that. Our machines are really good about scanning those ballots and accepting them That doesn't happen that much. The exceptions to that rule will be anybody who needs to use the handicap accessibility of these machines. If they need a audio session because they're blind and they can't read, or if they are paralyzed and they need to we even have puffing mechanisms on each and every machine. They use they go over, instead of getting a ballot, they go over to the scanner itself. The machine tech walks them through how to do it. Then once that is done, a ballot is printed up for them on one side of the machine and then fed into the other side of the machine for the counting. Because again, nothing is done without a paper ballot in New York State. We have no digital ballots. No way to rig this whatsoever. So that's the only difference. And then they're done voting, they leave. Yeah.
Is there a time limit to how much time a person would spend in a polling place?
There's no limit. Again, we ask you to be reasonable. Some of you that have come to my office have spent a good amount of time there getting B-roll, and that's fine. But again, if it's busy, or if there's other media there, or there's others of you there, we ask you to be reasonable. I suggest spending no more than a half hour to 45 minutes at any particular, inside the polling booth. Outside in the parking lot, you can hang out all day if you want. But inside of a polling place, try to spend about a half hour, 45 minutes there. But again, you could go back. You could visit it later. You could, go to a different polling place if you, I don't know how that is working for you guys, but I think that is our suggestion to you: half hour to 45 minutes inside the 100-foot mark.
Well, I know you're a busy guy these days. Any other questions? And we'll let you go and we'll finish up.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
On Tuesday, everybody is going to post his or her story to the Democracy in Action website. And that means whether you are a photography student, whether you're doing a TV story, a radio story, magazine, newspaper story, posting a still photo, no matter what it is, you'll be posting to the website. This is the cheat sheet that shows you how to get onto the website and how to post your story accurately. The reason we've created this is so that we have uniformity. It's a much more polished looking website if all the stories are under the same format. So this goes through step by step exactly what it is that you need to do to put your story together. All right, so a couple of things. When you click on this link, that'll get you to the website, to the page where you have to sign in. You have all been added as editors to the group, so you can get in and write your story, and you just follow through, right? Do you have a net ID? Click on that, so on and so forth. Those of you who do NCC News, you know that you will create a post. In this website, you create an article down here. It's a little bit different, but just like it says here on the...
Sorry.
That's okay.
As we were talking, they just ruled on the ballot selfie.
And
it is upheld, which means they are illegal in New York State.
Okay. So what if somebody does that? They walk out and say, look, I just voted.
That's a good question. I have no enforcement powers as a Board of Elections. I personally don't have any interest in enforcing an action like this. I haven't read the ruling. I'm just reading the Reuters report right now. But he said that it would wreak havoc on election day logistics.
hey guys, pay attention.
He said it would wreak havoc on election day logistics to issue a preliminary injunction against the law. So I guess it could continue to go through the court system and actually eventually be overturned, but they're not doing a preliminary injunction, which means for November 8th, ballot selfies are illegal. Don't do it. That's
Simple
what
as
I'm
that.
going to say tomorrow when I get asked about this 800 times.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. All right, so as you, when you click on a new article, you get a page that will come up like this, and basically you're just going to fill in the blanks just like it says. Here's your headline up here, right? Here's your, no need to do a byline. WordPress does that on its own. Dateline, your city is in all caps, and Democracy in Action, et cetera, et cetera. You will set a featured image, all those kind of things. Do an excerpt just exactly like it says on here. Except, we have made a change to make our editing process easier. So, on your sheets, down at the bottom it says, after excerpt, save as draft. Preview, and if everything's good, don't do anything. That's not what we do any longer, okay? I'm going to show you what we do, and then I'll give you guys a chance to write down what it is that's different now. So instead of just save as draft, what you're going to do is you're going to go up here next to status where it says draft and edit, right? You're going to click on that, and in this drop-down box, you're going to click pending review. When you save your story as pending review, and you click OK, and then you click Save as Pending, that puts it in a separate queue so that the staff of editors that we have knows, oh, that story writer has finished. I am now able to go into this and then publish the story. Okay? So we've created a system now rather than having to call you, hey, I see your story's in draft. Are you really finished? No, you're not. Okay, let me know when you're done. This way, you guys are in charge of when you're done. If it's in draft, you can close it, go to the bathroom and get a drink, come back, open it, whatever it is you want to do. But when you're done, finished, save it as pending, and then that way the editors know that you're completely done and you're ready to go. All right? So here's what you guys need to write down. Can you see that at the top? All right, just what I showed you there. Go to the Publish box at the top. Next to Status, click Edit. Drop-down menu is Pending Review. Click OK, Save as Pending, and you're done. All right? That's how you're going to save your story. When you're finished, that's what you need to do. All right? So if you've got pens, write that down, and if you don't, use your photographic memory and commit it to memory, although it's not that hard. There's another idea. Take a picture of it with your phone.
Can I just reiterate real quick for anybody who might have missed it, because this might be particularly confusing to you BDJ students. On this website, they are articles, not posts. If you write something in a post, your computer explodes.
All right. All right, so we've got all that. Let me show you one other. Do we have any 364, BDJ 364 students who will be doing radio stories? Couple? Okay, so one thing for you guys as well. When you guys go to your SoundCloud story, this is just for the people doing the 364 radio stories. You will post, just like you do now for class, to SoundCloud. Click on your SoundCloud report. All right, you're going to go to this little pencil mark here. Go up to Permissions, Pencil, Permissions, and then Enable Downloads. This is what you want to do. Click on Enable Downloads, and then Save Changes. The reason we're doing that is because we have reached out to local PBS, WRVO, and WAER, and to Syracuse.com, and we've said, hey, our students are going to be out all over Onondaga County doing all kinds of media covering the election. If you want some of our stuff to publish on your Facebook page, in Syracuse.com, on your WRVO website, you're welcome to take it. This allows them to take your radio story, right? It allows them to download it. Okay? All right, that's for your 364 folks. Lastly, let me give you an idea of what it looks like. This is the web page from last year, Democracy in Action. All right, so if you are a radio reporter, well, if you're any reporter, all right, a couple of things. When you guys do your featured image, like you do now, this is the featured image that comes up on the home page. Whatever image you pick to choose as your featured image will show up here as the main image on your on the main site. This is the headline that you've written in there. Okay? When you hover, you get this text. This is the excerpt that you've written. All right? Again, following everything that's here on your cheat sheet, you have to write in an excerpt. Where does that go? What does that do? This is the excerpt. All right? Featured image, headline, excerpt. All right? So after you go, then you click on the story. Here's what it looks like. There's your headline again. There's your featured image again. And this is a radio story. So that's what your radio story would look like. All right, if you want to do a slideshow, you're a photography student, you still got to do a headline, you still got to do an excerpt. There's your featured image, but down here is the slideshow. So you're going to take your shots, you're going to write captions for each of them, and then you can click through the slideshow. Again, instructions on how to do this for each of these is on the cheat sheet. If you're a magazine or newspaper reporter, here's your story, right? You're going to need to take a featured image picture with your cell phone, and here's your story. All right, and lastly, if you do a TV story, you have a featured image, headline, excerpt, but then because you've done a TV story, instead of the featured image, up at the top is your video story. All right, that's what it looks like, and then the rest of it is the same. Below that, you've got your dateline and your story. So again, the cheat sheet is pretty detailed, but literally it goes through. If you want to do post audio, it says how to. If you want to post a photo gallery, it says how to. If you want to include photos in the story, it says how to do that. If you want to include videos in the body of the story, it says how to do that. And the last thing on the last page, if you want to tweet, the hashtag is NHDIA, Newhouse Democracy in Action.
Is there an Instagram?
No. Simon, do you want to show them news links in case they don't have the...
Yes.
Yeah.
So I noticed when I go into the calendars for BDJ, there's a Democracy in Action preset. Is that something that we use when we're using Premiere?
Oh, yes.
Together?
Good point. Yes. The question was for doing the video story. In the class files, there's a Adobe Premiere preset for Democracy in Action graphics, lower thirds and stuff.
Oh, so that's what's different. And I have one other question about the equipment. So how is the turnover? Because I know there's so many limited kits. So.
Okay, well, seeing how you asked that,
Okay.
I'll tell you that now. I was going to do it later. BDJ, again, for cameras, this is a really busy day. Those of you who are working some of those morning shifts, the ones that start at or before the cage opens, go ahead and make a reservation. I've given the cage a list of legitimate reservations for people who need to pick up the camera Monday afternoon, early evening. The key is a normal reservation would let you keep it like till the end of the day the next day. But what we ask is when you're done, get the camera back. In most cases, you are not going to need a camera for more than 4, maybe 5 hours max. Because if you've seen the sign-up schedule, and if you've signed up, you obviously have, you can see that, you know, we've got things starting at 8, 9, 10, you know, all day long. So a camera that goes out in the morning will be going back out in the afternoon or evening. So the last thing we want you to do is sit on a camera all day if you're not using it. Return it as soon as you are done with it.
The manuals, if you happen to lose this, the manuals are here, nccnewslinks.syr.edu. Manuals are all here, and then you can scroll down to Democracy in Action.
And this is available, you don't need to be a BDJ student or anything. You can access this from anywhere. It's just out there on the internet. So if you're non-BDJ, you can still get to the Democracy in Action posting handout, and it will have any updates.
Another good thing it's got here is our tip sheet that kind of goes over what Dustin talked about. What to wear, what not to wear, tips on approaching people politely, give them a card, and all that kind of stuff.
The big smile is the one I recommend. I practice this daily.
You walk into class every day with that big smile.
So big,
Okay.
people just don't.
All right. Rather than go through everything, I think it'll be pretty clear once you practice with it yourself a couple of times. Yes?